After a lifetime of Windows, I decided to switch to Mac for 1 year. And I kind of regret it. And I'm thinking of switching back to Windows. So in this video, I'm going to be telling you 5 reasons why I don't like Mac OS and the MacBook. So first of all, the apps kind of suck. So if you're someone who works, let's say you're in school or you work in what's called an office environment, you'll often be messing around with apps like Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all that stuff. The apps are missing features, and sometimes even entire apps are missing. For some reason, Microsoft Access is not available on Mac. Some coding languages like Visual Studio are not available on Mac. So there were many times where I was forced to get a different computer or to run a virtual machine on my Mac just to get access to some apps. And it's not just apps that are missing, but also games. So if you love playing games, the MacBook should be your last choice, or at the very least, buy yourself a Xbox or a Steam Deck on the side to play games. Because Mac is like a desert when it comes to games. The only redeeming factor is that there are some emulation apps available if there are some retro games you want to play like PSP or PS2 or PS3, because the MacBook surprisingly runs those very well. Another feature that should be necessary and included by default is NTFS support. So if you've ever used a Windows computer, most drives for Windows are formatted in NTFS. And for some reason, if you plug in an NTFS drive, like a Windows formatted drive, into a MacBook, you can read the files, but you can't move files around or delete. Anytime that flash drive became full, I had to go and find a Windows computer and plug it in there just to be able to delete the files. So then I had to go on the internet and find this app which I use called Taxera NTFS, which allows me to use these flash drives. Another thing I don't like is Apple trying to simplify everything. So when it comes to settings, sometimes there are settings I'm looking for which Apple just hides because they think I won't need it. Another thing that was infuriating for me is iCloud. For some reason, if you have iCloud enabled, the Mac OS system will always try to download a bunch of your iCloud files onto your local storage. So it'll always try to fill up your hard drive. And that has a couple of downsides. First one, if you don't have uncapped internet, then this thing will use up your whole Wi-Fi data bundle just trying to download iCloud stuff, which is annoying. Second thing is that it fills up the storage. So that means every time you have a big file you want to transfer into your internal storage, you have to delete all of your iCloud stuff just to do that. So I ended up having to disable iCloud completely just to stop this annoying issue, because for some reason, Apple doesn't give you the option to stop syncing. And now let's talk about the hardware. There's one complaint I have about the hardware. It's the fact that it only has 2 ports, USB Type-C and another Type-C port. So anytime you need to do anything with external devices like this ring light I have here, I have to plug in my USB dongle just to get USB Type-A or to get Ethernet or HDMI. So if I happen to forget the dongle, then I can't actually plug my MacBook into like other stuff. It would be very nice to have these by default. But anyways, let's stop clowning on Apple, because there are some very good things that I like about Mac and Mac OS. The first thing is the battery life. I don't think I've ever had a laptop last this long, ever. So with my other computers, I'd always be thinking about the battery because 2 hours were like the average I'd get. But with the MacBook, an average day was like 9 to 10 hours. So I basically, anytime I went to campus, I never ever had to bring a charger because this thing would last the whole day. And even on the worst day, I think the worst battery life I got was like 3 hours. The second thing that surprised me was the RAM usage. This one is only an 8GB model. Compared to my 8GB of RAM on Windows, it just feels like it goes much further. That's because Apple uses a lot of swap. So that means that they take some of the stuff in RAM and then push it to the SSD. Sometimes my swap goes as high as like 10 gigs, which I don't think that's good, that you don't really feel the need to close apps to free up memory. Sometimes you'll be switching apps and there'll be a bit of lag because of the swap memory, but for the most part, it's actually very good. The performance is great. The next thing is the Apple ecosystem. Even if you own just one extra Apple device, the connection between them is like amazing. For example, I have an iPad. Let's say I want to scan a document. I can literally open up on Finder, click scan document, and it opens the camera automatically on my iPad so I can start scanning. Like, that's very good. You also get AirDrop, where you can AirDrop files between the two. Then you also get Sidecar, where you can use your iPad as a second monitor. Or you can take your iPad and cast it to the MacBook, which is a pretty cool feature. The next thing I really like is the trackpad. With other trackpads I've used, they're usually on the smaller side, so you have to like scroll multiple times just to get the mouse across the screen. But with this one, the trackpad is so big that I never felt like I was cramped for space. I also love the force click where you can push down like forcefully, and when you do that over a word, it will automatically open up a dictionary and define the word for you. Like, it's a really nice time saver for me. Then the next thing is the speakers. These are the best speakers I've ever heard on a laptop. Nothing comes close. You'll never be disappointed. So while there are a lot of problems with Mac and Mac OS, there are also some really good things that I can see why people would want to use Mac